With us once more, Carl and Richard from Primary Financial. We're going to be talking about estate planning. Hi.
How are you, Donna? Always nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. You haven't been here in a couple of months. It's great to have you back.
Been a while.
Yep, great being here.
Estate planning.
Estate
Who needs
planning?
it? When do you start it?
So, estate planning. Let's start off by dispelling just a couple of myths. And hopefully Carl and I can shed some light on a few different things here today. Okay. But number one, estate planning is for everybody. All
Really?
right. Yeah,
Okay.
it is. And I think in the news, I think a lot of the popular things that come out there is about estate planning is generally associated with the wealthy or people that have reached a certain affluency level and they have different sort of problems. And in financial planning, and Primary Financial is a comprehensive financial planning firm, one of the many steps that we're taking with clients is addressing their estate planning needs. And we've addressed other needs on other shows with you, and today we'll focus on this. But at the end of the day, estate planning is for everybody. And what we're going to talk about is what I like to discuss with clients about basically the basics of estate planning that everybody would need, and then some of the more advanced techniques that we'll introduce if the circumstances is appropriate for that. So some of the basics that you might find, which is for every single person out there is your basic sort of package. Your will, your living will, your durable power of attorney, your healthcare proxy. And although this sounds like a lot of different pieces, it's generally one sort of package. And one of the other myths I wanted to dispel with you today is that, when we talk to clients and we say, well, do you have a will? Most clients would say, well, no, I don't. And one of the things that most people don't understand is that if you don't have pretty much the will document, there's intestacy laws that will basically dictate some of the decisions that you would have made had you designed that document on your own.
So without a will, things go to probate, is that the term?
Correct.
Okay.
So if you don't have a will, you get what's called an intestate law, which is it's called dying intestate. That means that the state has a will prepared for you, and if you don't prepare it yourself, they just kind of slip this in and
Generic.
say, here's the deal.
Okay.
Here's what you get, so you don't really make any decisions. So a will really just kind of just says all the assets that don't have any kind of beneficiary designation or joint ownership attached to them have to get dispersed some way.
Like your lawnmower.
Correct, exactly.
Right.
Like your lawnmower, like your car, like this table, like the couch in your house. How does that stuff get down to the next generation or whoever it is that you want to leave that to? So you kind of own assets three different ways. You can have something joint with, say, a husband or a partner. You can have something like an IRA or a life insurance policy that has what's called the beneficiary designation. And then you have kind of everything else. So let's say I owned three assets. I owned an IRA, and you were the beneficiary of my IRA. I had a life insurance policy, and Rich is the beneficiary of my life insurance policy, and then I had all the other things that I owned, and my will says that my kids get everything. That's what my will says. My will says my kids get everything. So what happens? Well, when I pass away, so my kids run up and say, oh, we get everything. Well, no, you don't, because the beneficiary designation trumps a will designation.
Okay.
So the beneficiary in the IRA goes to you, the life insurance goes to Rich, and all the other assets flow down to my children.
Like a dance card. This person's going to get the first dance,
Correct.
you get the second dance, and everybody else is like free for all.
Yeah. So if I had a bank account, for a lot of people have bank accounts and they have
Yes.
two names on it, that account automatically goes to the other person who's named on the account, regardless of what your will says. So the will is kind of a catch-all for all the other things that exist in your life.
So you have to have one of those. What else do you need in estate planning?
Well, I will tell you, in terms of the estate planning as well, what you do need is you basically need that quarterbacking approach to all of it. As Carl's alluding to, you have a customization aspect. You have a way of designing these things according to your wishes. It's not just about who gets what and when. Okay, it's about customizing to make sure that it flows the way you want it to. And to Carl's point, you have the coordination of everything you have. You have beneficiary assignments. In certain instances, we begin to change ownership of certain things. So in that regard, estate planning is for everybody. But to Carl's point, it's the coordination.
Okay.
And what we're looking to do in our process is make sure that this is one piece because again, as financial planners, we're talking about the IRAs, we're talking about assets that are owned, we're talking about insurance programs. And I feel that what is lacking in our industry is the conversation about all of it. And the estate planning is our primary example of that all-encompassing sort of plan.
Yeah, so the important documents, as you were mentioning, is you need to have the will first and foremost,
Okay.
and then you have a power of attorney. And there's
Okay.
two kinds of power of attorney. There's a springing power of attorney, which says that when I'm deemed to be medically unable to handle my affairs, that this person is designated. Then there's also a durable power of attorney. Durable power of attorney means when I sign it, it's good right here, right now. we always recommend the durable power of attorney. And why? Well, because when you're sick, maybe you don't realize you're sick. Maybe you're making crazy decisions and you don't even understand you're doing it. So the people now who are there to help you, you're pushing away, saying, oh, I can handle it myself, I can do it. And that person is really hurting themselves. So we tell people, listen, if you trust these people and this is what you're doing, do the durable power of attorney and do it now. Because what happens in the end, that person says, I'm okay. The person who has power of attorney is trying to take that power away and end up in court. So you do these paperwork to stay out of court, and all of a sudden you're getting in court. So the springing is really not the best avenue. Then you have a living will, which basically says what happens at the end of my life. Turn it, pull the plug, don't pull the plug, whatever those decisions are going to be.
That should actually be, what is it called? It's called a living...
A DNR, or do not resuscitate, or a living will. Healthcare directives.
Should be like a dying will, right? These are my dying wishes. I'm like, right? 'Cause you're dying.
For the sake of the show, we just renamed it. So it's okay.
We're just renaming it. Okay, so you need the will, you need the
Power of attorney.
You need a durable power of attorney, right?
Yep.
You need the living will, and
the last thing would be a trust,
Okay.
if you need
in
trust.
certain instances.
Yeah. So a trust basically has led you to have the power to rule from the grave. So I might say, listen, I leave everything to Donna. However, Donna can't touch the money until she's 50 years old or 60 years old, or there might be a certain, but for your case, 35.
bless you.
So you take the money from your asset, you leave it to the trust, and then the trust basically makes the decision. So you have a trustee, you can name a person, then you can name a professional group, a bank, or a professional trust department to be that trust, and they basically handle your wishes, and they take care of how it's going to be done. So you can say, I leave it to my kids, I leave it to my grandkids. It can be used for, it's called the HEMS provision, health, education, maintenance, and support. So I can pay for college. If somebody gets sick, I can help pay their health care bills. Anything that might be necessary in their life, but they can't just reach into it to buy a Ferrari. They can't just reach in to buy anything that they want. And you also want to put language in a trust that doesn't have what's called the world of trust fund babies. I don't want my kids laying, or my grandkids laying on the couch collecting a check. You know, maybe I put stuff in my will that says, you know what, if you do well and you do good in school and you get a good job, the will will pay you, the trust will pay you a bonus for doing better work. You get good grades, you get extra money. If you get a good salary at your job, maybe we'll double the salary for doing what you're doing, rather than just saying sit home and collect a check.
You can customize it. Is that also where you take care of your pets? If you have a pet, is that inside of your trust?
Well, believe it or not,
this money I'm leaving to you in trust for my pet.
Yep.
So the trust is a set of instructions. It can be for people or pets, or the distribution of your assets in any way. But one of the points that we wanted to stress to your viewers today is that when you're designing that set of instructions and when you're saying, well, these are my wishes, this is how I want it to be handled, what better time is to do it than when you're not under duress, there's not a situation that's compelling you to do it in a very timely situation. So when we're engaged with a client and we have these standing financial planning relationships, we're bringing these topics to the table in a very frequent sort of manner. That way these decisions are made not under duress, not in a rush in any way, shape, or form, but over time they're clearly and concisely making these decisions.
I got it.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
You're very welcome.
I like that.
Our pleasure.
And the other time too in a will is where you could make a charitable contribution.
Absolutely.
You could actually leave some money to a scholarship, a foundation.
Oh, I'd love to get into that for a second if you
Okay.
have
Yeah.
the time.
Sure. Absolutely.
So
let's
say
wrap right up on that.
So what happens when people leave something to charity or the church? What do they mostly leave? People usually leave life insurance policies. Now, if you leave a life insurance policy to a church, a life insurance policy is a non-taxable event. So if I had $1 million life insurance policy, and let's say $1 million IRA, what happens usually is that the life insurance policy goes to the church, and the IRA goes to my kids.
Right.
You should completely switch that.
Do the opposite.
Okay.
Because
Correct.
the church or a charity is usually a 501c3, which is a non-taxable entity. If I leave the taxable thing, the IRA, to the church, they don't pay any taxes on it, and then I leave the tax-free stuff. So instead of having $2 million and passing $2 million, I give $1 million tax-free to the church who's already tax-free, and the $1 million gets turned into $600,000 after the tax man gets a hold of it. So leave the $1 million, leave the IRA, so it's very specific to designate the right assets to the right institutions, just for tax-saving strategy.
Coordination.
Excellent. And who should I leave these gold shoes to?
Carl will take those.
Hey, stay tuned for more. We hope you enjoyed this little financial information. Be well. Bye. Yay. I like it.